Hi everyone. Okay, voting time is over. So roll call. OG,
Here.
OO,
Here.
CG,
Yep.
CO.
Here and complete.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Before proceeding to the judges, just want to clarify if you guys are consented to be recorded. For all the teams, you guys can write down whether or not you're consented in the chat box, yeah. And also now for the judges. Basically, hi everyone. Welcome to the Novice Grand Final Round of EIA 2022. My name is Muti. Prefer pronounce you or her. I'm going to be sharing this round alongside wonderful set of panelists that I would like to invite to also introduce themselves to you guys as the debaters and also to the basically to the observers and audience. So maybe you can start with Aldrich. Do we have Aldrich here?
Yes, Ka. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Aldrich, and I'll be paneling this round. Good luck everyone for the debate.
All right, thank you, Aldrich. And then Alisa.
Hello everyone, I'm Alisa and I'll also be paneling and good luck to everyone.
All right, thank you so much. And then Joshua.
Hi everyone, I'm Joshua from UI. Best of luck for all of the finalists.
Thank you. And lastly, Rizky.
Hi everyone, it's Rizky from UI, pronounce he, him. Have fun for the round and good luck for the results.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, before we move on with the round, still waiting for the consent for all the teams, whether or not you're consented to be recorded. Probably we can just resort to verbal confirmation for opening government. Are you guys consented to be recorded?
Yes, we consent.
All right, thank you. OO,
Yes, we consent.
CG.
Yes, we consent.
All right, and lastly, CO.
Yes, we consent.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. So all the teams are consented to be recorded, so we're good to go. Quick notes before proceeding with the round. Firstly, don't forget to mention your PR preference before you start your speech so that you can be given question in the way that you prefer. And secondly, don't forget to also time yourself. The LO is giving a help by sharing the screen in regards to timestamp and whatnot. But just in case there's going to be any internet issues and what so on, you guys also need to have your personal timestamp. So also time yourself before you start your speech. Lastly, be mindful of time allocation for your speeches. Judges will only take notes until 7 minutes, 20 seconds. And afterwards, we're not going to be writing down anything. So be mindful of that as well. That being said, calling upon Prime Minister to open the round. Here.
Firstly, am I audible?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. Now I'm the Prime Minister of the opening government team, and you can, as for my pronouns, you can refer to me just as the Prime Minister. And for my POI method is through chat. Now I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The issue on the table is that society are often riddled with people who are apathetic about politics, as they think that political problems are quote unquote not my problem. So they don't really go out of their way to interfere, as the current politics do not make problems for their life. But this is what make marginalized communities nowadays, for example, Black and Hispanic people in the United States trying to get citizenship and voting rights, continue to not have the political and equal rights. And we will explain how and why that is in our arguments. First, we will define marginalized communities as communities that are in the minority. And by condemned, we mean to actively campaign online and offline towards political apathy or apoliticalism, but not to act aggressively against people who are apolitical. Our stance is to actively condemn political apathy in online and offline platforms in the name of the government and also society. Our goal is to protect marginalized communities and the equal rights of people. Now let's move on to our arguments. For our justification, why does marginalized communities actively condemn apoliticalism justify? First, apoliticalism is making a person who is a politician to ignore the case about politics that he or she should have been handling from the start. We believe that apoliticalism is making the person and the environment being caused in what should have been a better world. Not only that, political figures being apolitical hurts marginalized people the most, as usual lobbies of law usually do not benefit them as they are in the minority. So the government and society thinks that law should benefit the majority, but this is not the case. And this should be important as it is the obligation of the government to ensure the well-being and equal rights of citizens. So it is only fair for political figures to not be apolitical. Second, fellow marginalized people who are apolitical continue to either do not know how politics work, so they cannot further rights that should be rightfully and fairly theirs. So they unknowingly undermine their own rights. For example, if the women in Africa do not know how politics work and how political figures if they were allowed to vote, can change their life, they will never want to dabble in politicals at all. Now let's move on to our practical arguments. Why do we think that our stance can reach our goal and effectively solve the problem? First, if the marginalized communities keep actively condemning apoliticalism, then that apoliticalism would probably be reduced towards politicians and also to the general society. And since we are living in a democracy country like Indonesia, but that is to say that not all countries in the world right now are democratic, but just the majority of them are democratic, which means that we as the general society or public vote politicians through election. And if the politicians are not doing their job, then the public, including the marginalized communities, would probably attack or invade the politicians by charging to the politicians, which means that if we do not condemn or actively condemn apoliticalism, then backlash towards government is a possibility that we should think about. The worst case scenario of our stance is politicians are supposed to do empowerment towards the community, development, etc., right? So empowerment towards the community is mostly towards marginalized communities that are left behind. If the politicians do not do empowerment through the communities, especially the marginalized one, they will be left behind towards communities that are not marginalized, and it would affect the country's growth and make the country more underdeveloped or left behind in the world. For those reasons, we are more than proud to propose.
All right, we thank Prime Minister for that fine speech, topping the case of opening opposition, calling for leader opposition. Hear, hear.
Okay, so first, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, my POI preference through the chat box, and if I didn't answer it in 3 seconds, so it's been a no. And my gender preference, my gender pronouns is she or her, and I will start my speech in. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I need to my timer first. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I feel like condemning apoliticalism that they are offering is fully false, because actively condemning means now the marginalized community is desperately wanting to gain votes or voices by blaming the apoliticalism because they didn't use their vote to elect the president or parliament, that the marginalized community could gain more voice to change the policy. But it is not gonna be as effective as they already told you. So our goals is that we want to protect all layers of the society, including especially the marginalized communities, including both marginalized community and apoliticalism community itself. So like you have defined what marginalized community is. So marginalized communities is some people who actually minorities, right? Like you have defined it in the group chat. Okay, so actually what marginalized community want, so the first one, they want to be heard and included. And you like that, like what you all have defined what marginalized community are, they are the minorities, including like but not limited to racial minorities, gender minorities, religious minorities, etc. Right? From the example itself, we could see these people need to be heard. They keep getting a lot of discrimination by being the marginalized communities and stuff. So why would they need to involve in the apoliticalism and push someone to support another one quote government that had never heard their voice before? It's just nonsense at all at their side. Okay, so the second one, they don't want any discrimination, right? Like what I have talked about, they just don't want any discrimination by being part of the apoliticalism itself, by pushing someone to vote someone in the election and etc. It's just gonna make their race, religion, gender pronouns, etc. worse because they portray the bad thing to the society and stuff, and the society really gonna judge them more because of this thing. Okay, the second one is they want the policies and regulation could protect them all the layers of the society. So therefore, by actively condemning apoliticalism, they could make a bad portrayal of themselves by giving a portrait of a judgmental person, like I've said before. Even if they condemn this apoliticalism, didn't we don't need this at all, because apoliticalism is a community who doesn't care and know about politics in the first place. Therefore, rather than condemn the apoliticalism, it's rather to educate the society to that they could have a great portrayal of as a marginalized community itself. So before jumping to my argument, I would like to characterize apoliticalism. I mean, like, before I jump to my argument, I want to justify first why is it not justified for them to condemn the apoliticalism. So the first one is, how could an apoliticalism exist? So the first one, because they're disappointed by the government itself, and the second one, they don't trust government, and the third one, some of their interests are not provided by the government. So that is the reason why the apoliticalism is accessed. So actually, both apoliticalism and marginalized communities is at the same place, because like why they need to push themselves to like supporting the government while they both are not be heard by the government. So even if apoliticalism exists, to the fact that they just don't want to have any affiliation towards any political things, it is still not justified for the marginalized community to condemn them, because it is gonna be bringing negative impacts, such as first, people will now divide it even more, because like they have different choices, so they will divide it, and yeah, it just gonna be the next problem. And the second, there will be a really selfish society that pushing another society to do the same thing like them. And the third one, the unity of the two layers of society will all layers of society will not be existed. Okay, so without any condemn apoliticalism, the need of societies that could be fulfilled, because of what? Because our society right now is so progressive. They already have their own way to be heard by the government itself. So even without the condemn from the apoliticalism itself, by doing the apoliticalism, it just only give many problem in the nation itself, especially when it comes to election era. There will be a lot of teams that have different choices, and in the marginalized communities are actively condemned the apoliticalism. It just only gonna make the situation even worse. Because of what? Because of they don't have any right to push anyone or condemn anyone, especially when it comes to politics. And also, why would these communities do the condemn while the government itself didn't hear their voice about the discrimination that they oftenly get? So it is actually nonsense for the marginalized communities to actively do the condemn the apoliticalism. So that is why I'm super to oppose. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Leader Opposition, for the final remarks. Now to continue the case from opening government, calling upon DPM, here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So first, my name is Masayo Kun. I am the deputy prime minister. My POI preference is through the mic. You can chat, or you can chat also. So firstly, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So firstly, I'm gonna go over my rebuttals. The leader of opposition said that opposition has failed to prove that how they will protect marginalized communities by opposing actively condemning Apoliticalism. By contrast, the only cost to support is nothing at all, as we do not limit free speech and thinking, but just encouraging people to be more political or caring about the news and other people's rights. Opposition should Opposition said that they could just educate society, but by actively campaigning and condemning apoliticalism, we also educate the people and we give the choice of what to think of the people. We just encourage them to care more about political affairs. And then lastly, opposition said that how apoliticalism exists is because they are disappointed by government, but by encouraging people to care and be educated more about politics, that means that there are likely more people who actively thus care about their people and to do something about it. So firstly, I'm gonna go over to my arguments. Firstly, empowerment towards the communities is important. Empowerment towards the communities, mostly towards the marginalized communities that are the one that is most left behind, is the most important thing. The politicians have to create a safe community and place for the communities so that they can realize the ability and their own independence in the life of society, nation, and state. My first speaker already said that if the politicians does not empower the towards the community, the worst case is that they will be more left behind towards communities that are not marginalized, and it will be affecting the country's growth and making the country more left behind. I also want to add that this could lead towards riots in the communities, criminal activities, and it can involve the president if the politicians does not do anything. This would make the country be more left behind than it already is. Second, marginalized community who does not get empowerment, then they will be more left behind on every aspect, such as education, health, and etc. On education, they will be more left behind on education, especially on kids, because they are going to watch the adults going on riots, to criminal activities, and they won't have time to learn. And they won't have because the communities are going through riots. They won't have the place to learn. The people who teaches them and etc. And now on the aspect of their health is going to decrease because each baby needs to get immunization immunity shots, because the government leaves them behind as they are in the minority, they won't get any help with their health. For those reasons, we are more than proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, DPM, for the fine speech. Now to close the opening half of the debate, calling upon DLO, here.
Okay, so I'm audible.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, so my gender pronouns are here, him. My PO preference is for chat box. If I don't reply to a chat box, it means no, so do not overlap the chat box and yada yada yada, because it's just going to distract me. Okay, so 7:20 on the clock. Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, judges, we do believe that in this debate, the main thing that we want to achieve is that we want to achieve that we do want every single society to be protected, not just a minority, not just the apoliticalism, or just like the majority of the society, but we want all the layers of the society is just going to be protected at the end of the day. By what? By having some sort of like a policies that could protect them all. Okay, so before I jump into my arguments, I would like to bring some sort of like a brief rebuttal towards the opening government. So the opening government tell you that like in their status there's some sort of like an educating going on, and because like by condemning them, they're just going to educating them as well. But I think like that is not going to work at all. Because of what? Because well, the first thing that they do is this condemning the apoliticalism. So what is the intent? What's incentivize the apoliticalism to care about them after they condemning them, after they blaming them by not using their voices and so on and so forth. So I think like all this kind of thing is just going to be minuscule. All this kind of thing is not going to work at all. Even if like there are some stuff like apoliticalism who still cares about their minorities' right and so on and so forth. I think like all those apoliticalism voices is just not going to be capable enough to cater to make great policies changes at the end of the day. Because of what? Because they're just still a minority in the first place. Okay, so coming to my characterization, so as the apoliticalism in the first place, because well, I kind of like the opening government really failed to bring to you what is really happening on the status quo right now, what is like the characterization of the apoliticalism and so on and so forth. So here in OO, we already told you about how apoliticalism is existed in the first place, and also now I'm going to tell you what is apoliticalism community in the first place. So apoliticalism in the first place is that still a minority, still a community who doesn't really have power to change the policy and so on and so forth. They need, of course, the minority needs their voice to just add up their voices and so on and so forth. But I kind of like even if they have some sort of like the backup from the apoliticalism, we do still need some sort of like a majority voice in this whole nation just to create some sort of like changes in the policy. So therefore, in their side, it's not going to be effective at the end of the day. It is going to bring some bad portrayal to towards the minority in the first place, and I'll tell you that in my arguments. Okay, so before, so after that, with that being said, let's jump into my arguments. So the first argument is why is social movement is enough in our set house, and we don't need to condemn apoliticalism. And then second of all, why is it going to bring some sort of like bad portrayal towards the apoliticalism in the first place? To the minorities in the first place. Okay, so coming to my first argument. So why is social movement is enough and we don't need to condemn apoliticalism in the first place? Okay, so first of all, we are now living in the 2020. There are some sort of like a progressive society. Well, the fact that we do have some sort of like social movement, like feminist movement, LGBTQ movement, Black Lives Matter, and so on and so forth. I kind of like it is enough for us to create a bigger changes in this whole policies making and so on and so forth. Because of what? Because now the minority have finally get the backup from the majority in the first place. And also I kind of like there's nothing really so positive by just condemning the apoliticalism. Just basically by condemning the apoliticalism is just you as a minority is kind of like blaming the apoliticalism is that you should have used your vote because it's going to change my life. But I think like, what is it for them? What really incentivized them in doing so? I think it's like well, condemning apoliticalism itself is just going to be bad in the first place. Because of what? Because well, it's kind of like backlashing the idea of human rights. People are free to choose, and people are free to do whatever they want with their choices and so on and so forth. So I kind of like we need to respect the apoliticalism rights to choose whatever they want. Because well, first of all, my first speakers have already told you that like the apoliticalism is not really happening out of the blue, because well, there is some sort of like a disappointment going on, there is some sort of like a distrust going on and so on and so forth. So therefore, in order for us to condemning the apoliticalism, is this going to corner the apoliticalism in the first place, and it's not going to move them to help us in the first place. It's just going to make them even more away from us. This is going to make even the majority itself is going to be so sentimental about us. Like, look, now after we give them some help, now they're condemning the apoliticalism and so on and so forth. So therefore, the majority will think what will happen to them if they're not supporting the minority in the first place anymore. And also, it's going to create some sort of like a really chaotic situation in the first place. Because of what? Because now there's some sort of like a war going on the online social media platform or something like that. Like like the minority is going to condemn the apoliticalism and so on and so forth. And also, is this going to make some kind of like a bad portrayal to the minorities itself. And okay, so before I jump into my second argument, I would like to bring some comparison what will happen in our side house. Okay, so in our side of the house, even if this is the worst scenario that could happen in our life, in our side, right? So even if the minority couldn't really change the like the policies and so on and so forth could not be heard by the government and so on and so forth, at least we're not worsening the situation that we have in the first place. We're not worsening the situation that we have in the status quo right now. We're not dividing our society into more layers and so on and so forth. So therefore, there is no such thing as like a demonstration going on just because the minority is kind of like condemning the apoliticalism and so on and so forth. And okay, so moving on to my second argument, which is why is it going to just bring some bad portrayal to the minority itself. So the minority is now, well, historically, minority itself is not really heard by the government and so on and so forth. So therefore, in order for them to be heard or to be seen by the society in the first place, they will have to behave themselves. They will have to be able to like create some sort of like a good portrayal about themselves. They will have to be able to prove to the majority that they're still existed in this whole universe and they're still like contributing for the society and so on and so forth by doing some sort of like I don't know, like movement or something like that, by doing some sort of like a great helpful something, and also by condemning the politicalism is just going to making them look bad in the first place. So therefore, I kind of like by condemning the apoliticalism is this going to be bad in the first place, and I really strongly believe that it's just not going to be able to change any political policies and so on and so forth. So therefore, I would like to post this motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, DLO, for the fine speech. To open the closing call, calling upon member of government. Here.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
All right, nice. Okay, so I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges, O has made it clear that minorities are fine to be left to their own miserable fate, since minorities aren't allowed to express their anger on people who crush their hope of achieving equality, because they think it's nonsense. That is quite cruel because minorities have been through a lot. They need every last ounce of hope in order to reach equality. Like let's say a politician has a promise towards minorities, right? So let's say the promise goes like minorities having the same pay or whatnot, and he didn't get voted because people decide to not care about it. If I were to be like the minority, I'd be mad. I'd be condemning people who aren't voting for this man that can actually bring change, right? Like what opposition has said, like we as minority need a voice of a majority to create a change. But you see, politicians are people that have authority, right? Meaning that they are a major voice, right? Meaning that by them existing on the parliament, that means that our voice can be heard quite frankly, easily, because of, they support our campaign or whatnot. So I have 2 rebuttals, right? First rebuttal is that said that people are free to choose, right? So they chose to tell minorities to not condemn because, why is it so important, what's the real use of it? I'll tell you what's useful of minorities condemning these people that are not politically caring, right? Because you see, minorities are free to condemn because they think it's important. They want their voice to be heard. They need they need people who are in politics, right? So and then let's compare to a politician that they are trying to support, right? Like they're trying not to get rid of. What is the importance of not caring about politics? You become a burden to society. You will just a voting starts and you'll be like, I don't care. Like it doesn't really affect me. Does it affect the country? I don't care. I know about politics, but do I care? No, probably not. That's how severe this whatchamacallit, apoliticalism is, right? Okay, so that's that. Now moving on to my speech, right? So let's take the extreme case when we talk about apoliticalism, right? What can apoliticalism do? Destroy democracy. Because if people don't care about democracy, then down goes politics. What will happen if politics are no longer worth? Then we don't have a leader to lead the country. But before going far, let's break down the best and worst scenario if this attitude of apoliticalism is not condemned bad by the marginalized communities, right? But let's talk about the current status quo. In the current status quo, politics are already bad, right? We're talking about nepotism, corruption, all that. But the problem is we still need them to make a stable country. I'm talking about the politics and not the people. If apoliticalism keeps spreading, what will happen? There will be no people to replace the parliament. And the parliament will be the same with the same problems. Parliament cannot really just perish like that. They'll continue to exist. But in this extreme case that politics disappear from a country, so will order, and it'll turn chaotic, right? So these are, there are 2 points that I want to tell you that what happens if minorities do not condemn people who have this attitude, this apoliticalism, right? First is when people don't care about politics, it means they don't care about the voice of the people, meaning that these people do not want to see change in the current bad of things, meaning that minorities will stay minor without having to change and majority will stay privileged and ignorant. When that happens, automatically minorities lose their voice towards the government, assuming that the candidate is willing to, even if the candidate, let's say, don't care about, about minorities, at least there is hope for the next candidate to care. The next candidate can exist if politics is relevant, all right? And second point is the act of apoliticalism will continue. And at the end of the day, the majority will also feel the problem because the majority, let's say, are rational enough to notice the problem, automatically then they'll also complain about it. But we think if we wait for that long, it's not going to be possible because problems uproot from the bottom, meaning that problems will hit the bottom first and minorities will feel the change. An example of such change is the lack of government support in campaigns, and then minorities campaigns won't be possible anymore because of the lack of government support, and then minorities lost their way on conveying the problems, right? Now, what happens when minorities, condemn, minorities condemn these people that have this mindset, right? The media will support the minorities because most media, like Twitter, have plenty of social justice warriors. And that means the complaint of this behavior becomes faster known. When that happens, it can purge this act in a way that you'll be blasted by hate if you are having this apathy of politics, right? Because when people realize that these politics are relevant for minorities, they'll like try to find fault on like if you don't support it, right? Okay, so coming to my one and only argument, okay, why is it important to condemn, right? First reason is to make people realize that it is not plausible act, that apoliticalism is not a plausible act to help the country, all right? Because we all have been taught history, right? We all have been taught how to be patriotic. If this, apoliticalism like exists, you're not contributing anything to the country, and you're not trying to make a change to the country, and it's kind of pointless to teach you history, because of how how apathic you are to how like democracy works. Let's say in a development country, like let's say we are here right now in Indonesia, right? So that it's important because the society needs all the help they can get to make a country better, right? Second reason is that so that it doesn't become a trend to not care about politics. So right now, children in development country do not care about politics at all because it doesn't really concern them, right? By condemning people that are apathy of politics, it makes a trend or a fear. When people don't vote, they get blasted by harsh comments. And I think it's a small price to pay for a better country, assuming that the politician is good. If the politician is bad, nobody knows until he's voted anyway. So what's so bad about voting at the end of the day, right? Yeah, so with that, to conclude is that we believe that minorities have all the rights to condemn people that are apathic on politics because it is related to their well-being. It also contributes to their, so that they don't have to wait anymore to, just to stop suffering, and also for the sake of the country. And that's why we completely propose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for the fine speech. To open the case of closing opposition, calling upon member opposition, hear him.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, let me set my camera first. My preference view, I just chat through the chat box. My gender pronunciation is he or her. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. So, panel on our fellow debaters. What we should be discussing in our motion this afternoon is whether we, as the government or the opposition, are the marginalized community should actively condemn the apoliticalism. First of all, I think that the opening opposition already explained to us that why does the marginalized community should not actively condemn in apoliticalism, and I think that the OO is already linked in our debate in this afternoon. But we think that the most of the government bench doesn't give a really impact to the marginalized community. The government bench doesn't really give us the explanation why does the marginalized community should not actively condemn in apoliticalism. So first of all, I like to give a rebuttal first to the opening government. First of all, the opening government, one of the speakers said that if the marginalized community doesn't involve in politics or being apoliticalism, it means that they will not know how political works. But I think that's totally wrong, because in our society, in every school, that's already a civil education that already teaches us how the political works. We can also learn about the structure of the government. We also know about how does the election goes, and yada yada yada. And next is my rebuttals to the open government. They said that. They said that if the people or the society being apoliticalism, it can make the country or the region is left behind. But that's shows us that the OG is being delusional, because we think that the only even though maybe political plays a big role in our society, but we think that the most necessary sector that should be helped by the government or by the country to not being left behind is the economy. So I think that their statement or their arguments related to underdeveloped country or the marginalized community will be left behind. I think that's not real relevant to our motion today, and that's why we will tell you why we believe that this house why we believe that marginalized community should actively condemn and apoliticalism. So first of all, in status quo right now, like they already explained by the opposing opposition, most of the citizens think that the existence of the political affiliations does not really matter in our status quo right now. Not only the minorities or the marginalized communities, but also the majority itself. The reason behind why the citizens put low or maybe even zero trust to the politics or the political affiliation itself, or being apoliticalism is mainstream on the citizens. We believe that the reason is that the political affiliations, which must be used for collecting opinions or collecting aspirations from the citizens into the government, the political affiliations is nowadays being used for only personal interest, or used by them who have a power or authority to control or manage the affiliations just to achieve their interest. So we think that that is why there's a high number of citizens that being apoliticalism. And also we think that by for the marginalized communities, we don't have to actively, or we doesn't have to condemn apoliticalism, because we think that this kind of apoliticalism is good for the marginalized or the minority communities. Two burden of proof that I will explain to you. First of all is why being an apoliticalism is justified for the marginalized community, and second is why political affiliation is harmful. First of all, why apoliticalism is justified for the marginalized community, or maybe for the majority of the society. First of all, we think that apoliticalism means that the society doesn't really have interest, doesn't really care about the politics. We think that this kind of apoliticalism can be a way taken by the citizens and can be used to measure whether politics in a country or region is good or not. So the government can take a look about the low rating vote, that can show us why does the citizens is not really involved in the elections, or maybe on the president voting, or etc. And next is, we also believe that being apoliticalism is very justified and bring and not bring any disadvantages for the marginalized community. And next is why political affiliation is harmful for the marginalized community. So like what I've said before, the political affiliations is controlled by the person, or controlled by a bunch of people who are having their own interests. And that's why being for the marginalized communities, if they are not, yes, OG, POI.
You have said that not being apolitical does not bring any disadvantages, but we, as the opening government, have already mentioned that being apolitical means that marginalized communities won't be able to further their equality rights.
Okay, so I can conclude that your question is that the marginalized community, if the politicalism can be, if the marginalized communities they can pursue their own rights, but we think that by not actively condemn, it's still, but not if the marginalized communities is not sorry, but if the marginalized communities the marginalized communities can still pursue, or they can still get their own rights for them being apoliticalism. Like we know that the rights that given to the citizens or is the same and equal, and does not really matter for the marginalized community if they are not if they are giving a criticize for the apoliticalism itself, because we think that our side of the house, we want to protect the marginalized community in order for them to not being used only for the political affiliations, in order to just for raising their voting, or raising their voice, because we think that the only person, or the only actor that can be contribute in marginalized community is the marginalized community itself, and that's why we proudly to oppose this motion. Thank you.
All right, we thank member of opposition for the final remarks. Now to summarize the case from government bench, calling upon government whip for issues. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, I will prepare my paper, my POI preference in the chat box. I will see the chat box if I have the time. All right. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges, what happened in this debate? The first of all, opening bench already open this debate. We in here we will engage with the opposite team. They say about the problem from this is the government not have regret this minority, or they don't care and etc. Right? But in here I say maybe yes, but if you don't do anything, it's same, you don't change anything, right? This regret, they regret this. They say it will worse than others, but I think it will more worse if you just don't care and follow this will be apathic with the politics and others, and it will better if you speak up, you use your voice, use your what you have to bring in the politics, to bring the politician to hear you, not just silent and don't do anything. Okay, the next is the opposition already told us many things, but they never say to us what they will do and what their outcome. They just say about, yeah, we have a social movement and it's enough. What the kind of the changes, what the kind of the example, how they the movement is enough to support this minority group. I don't think this is will make a bad big changing. All right, the move to the closing closing opposition bench. They say about many things, but they never engage with our casus. In my first speaker, my first speaker already talks about in bad scenario if use this apoliticism this and others, but they never engage with my cases. And the next, they just I think they just repetitive with the opening bench because they don't have outcome, because they just give yeah, this is will bring benefit and others, and it will make the government take care and other, because the government will look the low rate in if we don't care about politics. And I think what they do, it will make a betterment and it will make worse in this current status quo. All right. In here, I will add what my first speaker already told you. My speaker already told how in our bench is different from the opening bench. First of all, opening bench they don't explain how their mechanism it works and how the bad scenario and good worst scenario and good best scenario it will work in outside in our side, and then they just yeah, and they don't or explain how it make a better in marginalized communities. All right, in here, why this is interest for the actors. First of all, we know these marginalized communities very suffer. They lack of many things, right? So this is will make a good for they, because in here if we can make people aware, people have a think about the politic and others, it will changing their life. Why? Because the first of all, politics have a authority, politics have the power. They can make a regulation, they can make something to help the minorities people, like what my first speaker says. And then the politics can help the only one can help the marginalized communities. Why? Because first of all, this is the majority make rules and others to make a betterment in the country, right? If you can you support the good person, the good candidate in politics, it will bring benefit in all of the country, not like in their side just don't care or others, but at the end of the day what they do is will harm not just for themselves, but will harm for all of the society. Why? Because what they do is they are not they just choose the bad candidate because they don't care or etc, right? And at the end of the day the candidate become a government and they do a bad regulation and others, and at the end the impact will feel by themselves and also with the others society. And this is the vulnerable people, vulnerable actor is the marginalized communities, because yeah, we know they are very suffer and etc. There are lack of many things and others. So in here we want to protect them with make the people society aware how about this politic, because this politic will make a changing, because if the politic can develop, it will make a develop in all aspect, because politic make a government can make many rules to in education, in health, in economic and regulation or others. That's why this vulnerable actor in here can be protected by them if we can speak up, we can prove the what the problem, what we want, and how we can achieve that. Not like just don't care and just saying yeah, it will make changing if we don't do anything. So because of that, we already told you, it will make benefit if we actively condemn this of apoliticalism. So I support this motion.
All right, thank you, Government Whip, for that fun speech. Now, to conclude the debate and also to conclude the case from opposition bench, we're calling upon opposition whip. What is yours? Here.
All right, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. My preference PLI are from chat box. So if I didn't respond, so I didn't take the PLI. My gender pronunciation is she or her. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Panels, in this motion, I would like to do some rebuttals towards the causing governments. They said that the government whip said that the political or every political activation is the only actor that can help marginalized people in every situation. But in this situation it was biased because they can prove it and the government can give us the example of why the political actor can help the marginalized people. And then moving out, both of the governments is talking about the political figures that can help the marginalized people or issue and etc. But in the opening opposition, they didn't respond about it. And in this opening government situation, we noticed that how political figure is not helpful enough to look at in status quo right now. Even though there's a political affiliation talk about the marginalized communities, it's not that helpful, and even it given that it's only a few of it's only few of political figures that talk about it. And in the causing government, we already talked that the way that the political affiliation can use the way that marginalized people control them and use it as the face of them without really hearing about what they want, and they didn't help the way that marginalized people in their agenda. Even worse, they mostly talk about for the sake of the political agenda. They talk about the marginalized people or marginalized act like they care about the marginalized communities, while eventually they are not. They just want attention from marginalized communities to vote for them and etc. And then moving out the moving out the opening government, it's too much romanticizing the role or the impact from the political affiliation rather than focus to secure or protect the marginalized people that we should secure it. And as if they're that good, whether they did is rightfully help the community. While we say that's not totally true. Why? Because we can look at the status quo right now, where the political affiliation has not that has not that superior, has power that can control the way that marginalized people if they involve them. And then look at our status quo right now, where political affiliation or figures are also the actors that harming the community that's our marginalized community. And then as the closing government, they overgeneralizing about the political framing under this motion right now, when they say political agenda is need to make the country stable, like the way that political is one of only actor that can help the marginalized people. And even the closing government said that even they said that the apoliticalism if the apoliticalism exists there, then the parliament cannot be replaced and even create chaosity. But inside our house, as a closing opposition, I think the way that apoliticalism is actually can help the way marginalized people to survive in the status quo right now, because the way that we can care each other, even not only the marginalized people but all the majority that sick of the political in our status quo right now. The way that we can encourage and we want encourage each other for the marginalized people and the majority, we can look at each other to empower, and even we can support each other rather than join in the political affiliation, right? That and then if the marginalized community is being apolitical, then the harm is not going to happen as bad as what closing government mentioned about it. As it will make the country is an symbol, like we can care, we can support each other, like the way that opening opposition said that there already movement about it, and the way that apoliticalism is actually can improve what the movement support that movement. So the way that it can be the parameter, like my previous speaker said, that it can be the parameters. So the way that political affiliation or all the political actor can see what the marginalized people want. So that's why not only marginalized people but majority people choose to be apoliticalism. So the way that apoliticalism is justifiable, because we as the closing opposition, we believe that all of the marginalized people and majority people can be connect, or can encourage each other and even empower each other to beat all of the political issue that happen badly in our status quo right now. Well, we can see in the status quo right now, people already suffer because of the decision that politician made. It will people's in our status quo right now is already lives and have a right to depending and carrying on each other. We live in a country that that's supposed to be free for everyone, right? And then but we need people to ensure that lives is we don't want that all of the majority or all of the marginalized people to receive a promise that doesn't happen when people try to sneak to search it by pretending that all of the political affiliation can achieve it. And people right now is already dying and suffering from the political affiliation, and that's why we as the closing opposition is proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
All right, we thank our opposition whip for the fine speech. That also marks the end of the Novice Grand Final Round of EIA 2022. Thank you so much, everyone, for the great debate. And now the judges are going to discuss and deliberate